What's that? No, not the girl. What's that? Over there. No, not the bear. I'm talking about that thing. What is that? It's a 3? I can't remember the last time I saw one of those. I forgot it existed and it weirded me out. Well, I guess that's fine, as long as there aren't any other numbers I need to worry about. My name is Graeldon. I'm on an impossible journey to review every Steam game in alphabetical order, and today we're playing 103. Let's begin. Have you got 5 freedom bucks burning a hole in your pocket and trust my opinion on games? If so, go and buy this game right now. If you answered yes to both questions and you're still watching this, then I'm slightly offended that you don't trust me, but that's okay. Let me change your mind. Considering that the majority of my audience are in the 25 to 34 year old age bracket, I'm going to assume that most of you remember how Silent Hill PT absolutely took the gaming world by storm when it released. I want you to imagine that game for a moment. The claustrophobic, endless hallways that shift and change as you continue to explore, and make it French. Not quite Expedition 33 levels of French, but like, put the main character in a beret and make them drink wine kind of French. Well, now that I think about it, they could have just been portraying a really artsy student at almost any university/college in the world, but I think you get what I mean. Released on the 21st of December 2018, developed and published by Dystopia Interactive, this is one of those games where the trailer made me intrigued, and I was pleasantly surprised to find that it actually delivered as well. The premise is fairly simple. You play as Lily, a young adult who recently experienced a traumatic event, but finding herself unable to recall what happened, uses the power of her imagination to explore her memories and relive them to piece things together. The entire game takes place in this series of cozy yet creepy wooden hallways filled with posters, objects, and miscellaneous paraphernalia. Oh, and a patchwork teddy bear and several creepy mannequins. I don't know where you all stand on mannequins, but I hate them. Can't stand them. They put me on edge, make me uneasy. If they are in a game, I know that at some point they're going to move, and it'll be when I'm not looking. They're like the weeping angels from Doctor Who, but worse. Thankfully, while 103 has horror themes, it doesn't actually have any jump scares, or scares at all, really. Most of your time will be spent walking the hallways and examining various objects to trigger events and move the story onwards. Now, fair warning, this game is so short it's basically impossible to talk about it in depth without spoiling it, so if you have any interest at all in checking it out, skip ahead to the verdict section. The game begins with you seeing Lily walking down the hallway away from you. There is a path to the right, but it's blocked by small, childlike mannequins, so there's really only one path to follow. The game will often do this to steer you in the right direction. It is a fairly linear game after all. As you move down the hallway, you can pause to examine things. Boxes of books on the ground, shelves full of trinkets, a gallery of photos, presumably from her travels, posters from various events, and poetic writings on the wall. Everything is very detailed and meticulously placed, but it's also very jumbled and haphazard, like trying to sort through foggy memories of past events. Interestingly, you can't actually interact with anything in the game. You can't pick up objects to examine them, press buttons, or flip switches, but it's also not necessary, as you'll trigger events by simply looking at the right object. Going back to the writings on the wall, this was one of the very few things that disappointed me, mostly because it's not actually on the wall, but rather floating just off the surface of it. It's a shame, because I feel like it wouldn't have been too difficult to improve on this, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee it, and it is pretty immersion breaking. The other thing you'll notice early on is that the sound design is immaculate. The music is often eerie and foreboding, supported by the rumbling of thunder and pattering of rain outside, which adjusts nicely depending on how close you are to the single window to be found. Sounds like creaking floorboards, the soft pads of footsteps, picture frames rattling on walls, the knocking coming from behind doors, and the ticking of clocks are all implemented with a 3D sound space, making wearing headphones an absolute must, as you'll be able to pinpoint precisely where something is from sound alone. While it certainly wasn't for me, I'm sure someone out there will really enjoy the whispering ASMR from the mannequins as it pans from one ear to the other when you turn around. Combined, this makes for a world space that just tugs at your sense of curiosity and pulls you in. Of course, you could choose to simply ignore all that and just follow the visual plot beats, like an overly eager child following a trail of breadcrumbs to their eventual doom, but hey, you do you. In general, if you see a character looking at something, it's probably a good idea for you to look at it too, as it will usually be the event trigger you're looking for. These range from things like writing appearing on blank canvases, to mirrors cracking, or later in the game, consuming beverages. Speaking of mirrors, these form one of the puzzles you'll need to complete in order to progress, and according to the forums, these stumped more than a few people. So, in case that happens to be you, dear Crusader, here's what you need to know. There are 8 mirrors in total, 4 on each wall, and you need to look at them in the correct order. You'll know you're looking at the correct one when it cracks after a couple of seconds, so just keep moving from one to another until eventually they are all broken and you'll move on to the next step. While it's arguable that the storytelling is formulaic and predictable, I think the way it's delivered makes up for those shortcomings. For example, when you get to the drinking scene, you know exactly what's about to happen. As you force your character to down one drink after another, you reflect on Lily's loneliness and apparent peer pressure at the party she's at. At the very least, she doesn't seem to be enjoying the drinks. The game also conveys the inebriated state wonderfully, with your vision swaying and the audio becoming muffled and distorted. It's a simple but effective combination, and when the game then asks you to sit in a chair, only for you to then hear the click of a seatbelt and the hum of an engine, does it fully register just what is about to happen, but you're strapped in and unable to even look away as the scene plays out before you. On the one hand, you might find Lily's actions to be stupid and reckless, and on the other, you might relate to the numbness and reliance on routine to get through events. You feel disconnected from events around you until something shocks your system strongly enough to pull you out of the fugue state. The game handles the conclusion of the story well, forcing the player to confront the reality of the consequences of their actions, and in a visceral way you can feel the judgment of society. From start to finish, everything wraps up in about an hour's worth of gameplay, depending on how much time you spend enjoying the atmosphere. There's some replayability in the form of time-based achievements if you're looking for something extra, but one playthrough will likely be enough for the average gamer. Personally, once the game wrapped up, I simply stayed on the title screen for a couple of minutes to give myself time to process what I had experienced and piece things together. And to me, that's a sign of a good story. 103 isn't reinventing the wheel when it comes to horror-themed walk-em-ups, but it does manage to deliver a solid experience from start to finish with a level of style and polish that is all too rare to see on this channel. It's not a 10 out of 10 experience, but would you really expect that for the price it's being sold at? It's the kind of game that you pick up in a sale, only for it to sit in your library for a number of years until one day you rediscover it and decide to give it a shot. It's easy to play through in a single sitting, and afterwards you'll just think to yourself, dang, that was neat. Good job, devs. And then you'll probably go back to whatever game you're currently grinding away at. It's not going to be the next big thing, but it serves perfectly as a palate cleanser between big games that you're playing so that you're less likely to get burnout. The premise is simple enough to draw players in, and the way it delivers makes it enjoyable to play, simply wanting to go from one event to the next. I never would have stumbled upon this game if it weren't for this silly series, and I'm glad that I got to find it. That said, I'm a sucker for exploring detailed environments. There's something charming and immersive about knowing that every detail has been carefully and thoughtfully placed to tell a story and to represent characters. It captures that somewhat eerie feeling of visiting a friend's house and finding yourself learning about them simply by observing their home. The photos on the wall, the items on shelves, the way the space is decorated. Every little thing forms part of their story, and that was the sense that I had as I explored the hallways in 103. Do I wish the game was more expansive and bigger in scope? Of course I do. I wanted to explore more rooms and learn more about Lily as a character, but I also acknowledge that it would have been at the compromise of a different aspect of the game, and I respect their artistic choice to be so focused on carefully crafting the experience they aimed to deliver. I do think it falls short in a few regards. The plot is a bit predictable, the puzzles are too simple, and walking the hallways can be a bit repetitive. This game certainly won't be for everyone. As I mentioned earlier, the floating text on the walls was the biggest drawback for me. It's the only part of the game that feels like the devs implemented it and thought, yeah, that's good enough. But perhaps there was a limitation on their end that I'm not aware of. Either way, it's sufficient to say that I enjoyed my time with 103, and I'm interested to see what Dystopia Interactive do next. Well, actually, I already know. It's a post-apocalyptic bullet hell survival game. It's a shame that I won't get to play it until at least 100 years from now. So, with all of that in mind, my final rating for 103 is The Sound of Rain on a Car Roof, out of 10. It's a bit creepy, a bit comforting, a bit nostalgic, and a reminder to be careful when driving. Thank you to all the Crusaders and Templar Knights for supporting the channel and making videos like these possible, especially the Noble Knights, Azazel, Dados, Gigabread, Kartoffeljäger3, Neggy Malevolent, Chef_, and The Crabs. And an extra special thank you goes to our 5 Knights of the Holy Grail: Ashley Walks, Automatistic, Gust, Freaky Feline, and Matey8. If you'd like to support the channel, check out the membership options below, or just remember to like and subscribe. That helps too. That's all for now, so if you've made it this far, here's a sneak peek of the next game. And until next time, take care.